Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Disorderly Conduct, presented to you by CJ Rock. I've got some very special guests tonight, soldiers of information, people that want to talk, and we're here at the Lazy Fox pub in the heart of Fulham. So, welcome to Sebastian. Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
It's not too bad.
Good.
I'm hanging in there.
Great.
Coming down tonight.
Welcome.
Sebastian Blake. How would I describe you? As a handsome writer?
A bearded writer, how's that?
Beards are very popular. I did try growing one, but I can't get the facial fluff going. It's not happening. And Carleen, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm not too bad. How would I describe you as a beautiful playwright?
Sorry, shrug. You can't see me shrugging.
And for the tape, Carleen is shrugging.
That was an official shrug here on Disorderly Conduct. It's been an interesting week. There's been lots going on. We had our first political debate, or some would say it wasn't a debate, it was more of an abuse of the party political leaders that happened last week. We've had, I believe there were some sporting events that I don't pay any attention to going on. There was a lot of stuff going on in the US politically that I'll talk about later. But to start the show off with, I found this story all week. The reason why it grabbed me is all week I've been hearing people going, America's the evil empire, blah blah blah, America does this, and I've had a lot of arguments with people about this, that actually every government in the world does bad, and every government's probably done bad. I think maybe only a few haven't. Small island states out there, and the place with the president who drives around in Volkswagen is probably the only countries that haven't done bad to people, but generally people have. And I spotted this story about that the Kremlin has a team of people that goes around trolling on the internet. Now, the only reason this story grabbed me is I read a lot of websites and news stories, okay? And on a lot of these websites, I notice the second there's a story about Russia, there's a whole load of people going, America, they're evil, the government's terrible, all the rest of it. And I'm like, that's not rational. That's not even a rational statement, right? But then this story came out that the Kremlin's employed loads of people to just troll websites and put pro-Russian statements on there. And it just made me think, it's like, we look at America with their spine and all the rest of it, but what's the most what really winds people up in this world? Trolling on the internet.
Well, what's wrong with what they're doing? Every other company put money into pro-marketing and have algorithms running on the likes of Twitter, Facebook, and all the others to find out what their customers are saying about them, and then follow those people as well, because they then benchmark how they're doing on how many likes or how many good words that they use or how many bad words that they use. What's the general feeling about our company? What's wrong with the Kremlin doing that? There's nothing wrong. This is a non-story, CJ.
There's always
Come on.
something wrong with a state.
Why is this a good story?
Like that? Come on. When a state does... Sorry, Carleen.
Sorry, it's also about propaganda, yeah? So it's misinformation, disinformation. It's causing more confusion, and it's trying to have some weird kind of balance.
I completely disagree. I do, yeah, completely.
How dare you?
Basically, if you kind of think of it this way, Twitter is now the momentary, real-time news feed for the people that are in that certain place. Now, you're saying it's propaganda that the Kremlin is paying people to blog and say nice things and maybe get back in touch with these people that are saying bad things and just trying to have a consensus of feeling around the Kremlin. Yes, okay, that's fine, but you're not going to stop that real-time news feed now because it's ubiquitous and it's planetary. So it can't be effective in its ploy to get people to feel a certain way.
But it is, though, and this is what brings out the rage in CJ Rock, right? You've got a system when governments are doing stuff like that. It's different when companies may want you to buy their product, okay, but there's always an alternative view on something, so people will debate something, discuss something. When you've got governments doing that, it means they can drown out all debate, okay? All rational discussion, all right? So if somebody says something negative about Putin, they've got these hundreds of people typing, no, that's not true, it's all about America, and people listen to it because they're pretending to be individuals.
Okay.
A company puts stuff out there, that's a company putting stuff out there. They may sponsor people to do it, but they usually have information up saying that this person's been hired by us, all right? Whereas with these trolls as such, they're not even pretending to be Russian half the time, right? They've set up accounts, fake accounts, and they're putting out information, misinformation a lot of the time about what's going on. It's darkening the truth, and Twitter is anything but a news feed. Twitter's just a rage machine now. To me, it's the equivalent of Fox, and to me that's.
Well, no, I think that's completely unfair for Twitter. There's a lot of information that comes out, and some good, some bad, and how do you verify that? And it has to be from numerous different sources. Fox doesn't even do it from one source, let alone have any credibility. But you're talking about countries that are already corporate owned with the money that is backing up that country. So it's exactly like a corporation finding a way of making things look better than they actually are, because they want to continue to make money.
But they shouldn't be, is more my argument. Whether or not
I'm not disagreeing with you there.
They shouldn't be. And also, Putin and the Kremlin should take ownership of what they're doing.
Why should they?
Because if you're...
They don't care. They don't care. At the end of the day, it's about spreading their message. They don't care. It's about... We've got these two different... Not two, or however many empires there are, trying to control people's thoughts, trying to control people's movements, and it just I find it very scary. It also reminds me of, I think, the Olympic Games, and I think it was Iran, and you see all these people, and it will have death to America. Well, some people might agree with that, but it's about control, it's about misinformation, disinformation, and it's just about darkening the internet, and just make it what the actual ideal was it to share information, bring peace, hopefully, but it's becoming something completely different. It's a weapon of war, and that's what it is now.
Okay, I mean, I agree with you to some extent with what you're saying, but I've got to come back with the argument of how much do you know about the Kremlin and Russia as an individual in the UK?
I don't know much.
And so what's the point in them actually being pro-Kremlin, pro-this, if we already have these opinions about this in the first place, knowing that small things about the Cold War, small things about the KGB, small things about... In fact, I don't know much about Russia whatsoever, other than they might have beautiful women and ugly men and...
what about Crimea?
I have no idea.
You must know a bit. I mean, okay, well, I don't... we know it's different, which obviously there's nothing wrong with that, but then it's how protection of people's rights, their human rights record is not brilliant, and it seems to be getting worse.
It's appalling.
Yeah.
So that is what we do know, and we know that like any regime, whatever, they want to control, they want to change people's mind, they want more people to be persuaded.
Yeah.
And that's what is frightening, and that's what's scary.
So this is basically a sales job, but in fact, because we are talking in this way, it's a very bad sales job, and it's just a ridiculous thing that they're putting money into.
I'd love to take the line that they're no different from a corporation, but I think it's very dangerous territory in a way to dismiss them in that way, because at this moment, like I said, there's a war that everybody's forgotten about going on that started off with independent freedom movement. That then turned into a separatist movement, and people are dying by actions of, you could argue whose actions they are. It could be, as the Russians keep saying, the Nazis over the border, or it could be Putin's attempt to get hold of Crimea and Eastern, is it Serbia? I've forgotten what it's called now.
Ukraine.
Eastern Ukraine.
Yep.
But when governments do that, it's a dangerous thing. They're not taking ownership of what they're doing. The Kremlin's, Putin's come out and gone, do you know what? I'm doing this because I believe I need to protect Russian people in Eastern Ukraine. Fine, I can handle that argument. I'm not going to necessarily agree with it. But the second you can sort of do what they're doing, that sort of undermines your whole argument. That says you don't believe in what you're doing, surely.
Doesn't it come down to the cost of land? Why actually have this war in the first place? To be honest with you, I don't know enough about it to say this is why this war is happening. I don't understand it. I don't think many people understand understand it fully.
Which is, again, another level of the problem. And instead of people going out and finding out about it, like, I've gone and done a little bit of digging about it.
Okay.
And it's over particular things. Ever since the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia's felt a bit vulnerable. NATO's expanding. A lot of the countries that used to be part of the Soviet Union bloc don't want anything to do with Russia. Russia doesn't like that. And it's thrown its weight around. It's done it a few times, whether it was Georgia or even Chechnya, a country that people go on about Afghanistan in America. Chechnya was flattened by the Russians. Nobody said boo to a goose over the whole thing. Now, you can argue that they've got their right to do that, and Russia would argue that it's still a democracy, even though most people, including Russians, would say that's not the case. But I think it's incredibly dangerous when they start doing this, and people are willing to accept it without question. In a way, they question a lot of the stuff America does or the British government does. They don't question what Russia does, and that's scary to me. You know, that suggests that people are so infatuated with hating America they don't see what everybody else is doing. You know, and that to me is scary. You know, somebody who's seen again and again what countries are capable of doing when they want to, paying people to troll and pretend to be people suggests a great weakness in their argument.
Well, it's propagandist misdirection.
Yeah, and it's sad, and I think that's slightly terrifying. And I do hope other governments start doing it, although, yeah, the Russians can't be the first. I'm sure the Chinese probably do it, and I'm sure to some degree the Americans probably have a system for doing that sort of thing.
I'd probably say India, Pakistan, Kazakhstan, Mongolia. And what the hell do you know about Mongolia?
And Kazakhstan, yeah, those those ones, yeah.
Yeah, I just throw them out there. The thing is, we don't, especially in the UK, we don't have enough of a news feed to understand what exactly the political landscape is in the other parts of the world that do have far higher population density counts than our own, and we still happen to be one of the richest countries in the world. So,
or rather, we tend not to. It's very hard to get hold. Like I said earlier, it's not easy to get hold of that information. And honestly, I think people can't be bothered sometimes to check information because there's so much instinctive rage in the internet, especially from what I see on Twitter, that people don't really go, right, okay, this happened, what's the story behind it? Like the plane crash this week, everybody started going, the guy was depressed, blah, blah, blah. People were coming out and going, well, don't blame depression. There's lots of people who are depressed and don't do crazy stuff. You had all sorts of arguments springing up, and it was people just being instinctively angry and not going, actually, let's investigate it, let's find out what happened, and then we can deal with it. Every day there's a new story now. There's a new story about how he'd broken up with his girlfriend, about how he wanted to make a mark on history. Nobody's mentioned the heroic actions of the co-pilot who attempted to save everybody's life. You know, people, I think, choose news more the way they want it rather than actually finding out what the information is.
Because there's so much out there. There is so much, and after a while you see what's happening in Syria, what's happening in South Africa, what's happening in the general elections in Nigeria, and afterwards there comes to a point and you're just like, that's enough. I don't want to hear anymore.
Okay, well,
I don't know. I quite like his name. Good luck, Jonathan. Definitely, I'm voting.
No, what about the schoolgirls which have been missing for how many months? Is it a year? And it's disgusting.
Well, there you go. Well, look, here you go. In terms of that, and good luck, Jonathan's election. We've got an election coming up in the UK soon.
Are we down to 50 days? 80 days? Around the world? Don't know. What?
It's May the...
Fourth be with you.
7th.
May the 7th. So you've got the election coming up. You had the first debate that's happened this week. There were lots of polls that came out that said Cameron had won the debate, even though it wasn't actually a debate. They were questioned separately by Clarkson and...
Clarkson? Really?
No,
Paxman.
It felt like, I know, I am obsessed with the man, but they were questioned, and the big issue that came up was the NHS a lot. Is the NHS important to you guys? Is it something that will decide the election for you? Will you even think about that when you go to vote?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the NHS is one of the strongest reasons for being pro-UK. It is one of the best, if not the best, healthcare services in the world. It's free, it's for everybody. You can just walk in and you don't have to pay anything. Nobody asks any questions. There's no racism, there's no judgment, there's nothing in there. I'm sure there's cases of here and there. I'm not going to deny that bit, but the point is, any individual from any walk of life can just walk in